Hello guys, we're just going to go through a demonstration of how to mark out and cut a mortise and tenon joint. So first of all, we'll just go through the list of tools we're going to need. So we're going to need a mortise chisel, a mortise gauge, square, we're going to need a mallet, tenon saw, a couple of chisels, we've got 1 inch and 1/4 inch, we need a ruler, marking knife, and of course a nice sharp pencil. So first of all, take our timber and have a look to set out where we're going to put our face and edge marks. So our edge mark here, and the face, and also on this side. So what we're going to do is we're going to set out the mortise first. We need to measure our timber, how wide it is. So try and get in a good habit of, instead of using the end of the ruler, start from the 100 and use that as your 0, then you can mark out a lot more accurately. So this is 45mm wide, so I need to set out 45mm gap for our mortise and tenon. So first of all, we can pop a nice square mark on the end, leave yourself at least 2 inches on the end here, give yourself a little bit of room, nice tight line, and then we want to measure 45mm. Okay, we can then scribe that across as well. So we want to now take these lines to the other side. Just flip it over, little dash there. Try not to mark all the way across as much as you can. Keep the pencil lines to a minimum. That will stop you from making any mistakes in cutting to the wrong line. As you can see, I'm only going across once to keep the pencil line nice and tight so that we're working to very small margins. Okay, so once we have that set, we now need to set out and position the actual mortise hole. So ideally, you want the mortise to be 1/3 of the width of your timber. So this piece is, I believe, 30mm. Let's just check. Yeah, so this is 30. So we want the mortise to be 1/3 of that, so it's 10mm. So as if by luck, I've got a 10mm mortise chisel. So I'm going to set up my mortise gauge to that exact width. Now what you want to do with the pins on the mortise gauge, you want to have that so they're on the very tip of your chisel, not the inside of the pins, because they are a little bit narrower. So we want those pins to be set right to the very edge of the chisel. Okay, that looks pretty good there. So then from there we want to then set that in the middle of our timber. So there's a 10mm, then the 10mm mortise, and then there should be another 10 on the other side. So what I like to do is actually measure that out with the ruler. So I've got the 10mm mortise. Now I'll use that to set up the mortise gauge, making sure that the stock of the mortise gauge is on our face side of our timber, always marking off from the stock, from the face and edge side. Okay, push the pins in, hold the stock in place, and then just tighten up. Have a double check. Okay, that looks pretty good. You can also then check that you are definitely centered. Flip it over the other side, and that should fit into them holes again, so that's perfect. Okay, so now what we want to do is actually scribe our mortise lines there. Like I said, making sure you're working off your face side. Pop the piece of timber down on the bench, rest it against your chest if you need to, and then just slowly push down. Very little pressure, your first cut, just push it along. Then just go a little bit deeper, and that's all we need. Then flip it over this way. Don't turn it over this way because you're going to be marking off the wrong side. So once we've done this side, flip it over end for end, and then we can then mark down this side. So light pressure, and again, same. Okay, so that's now our mortise marked out. If you want, you can pop a little pencil line in them grooves just so they show up a bit more. Okay, so that's our first step done for marking out the mortise. Okay, so the second step, we're actually going to mark out the tenon now. Now, we're going to do a through tenon, so that means this piece of timber is going to actually go completely through the other side. So what we want to do, obviously we know that this is 45mm across, so we now need to mark our shoulder on the tenon. So again with our ruler, marking 45mm down. And then we want to just square that across. Transfer that mark across as well, all the way around. Take your time with this, make sure that the lines all meet up. Okay, so that's great. So our lines are all meeting up. That means we've gone round nice and accurately and square. So now we want to mark out our actual tenon width. We've already got our mortise gauge set up for marking out the mortise. So now simply all we need to do, from our face side again against the stock, up to our line, push down to the end, light pressure for first push, and then just a little bit deeper. We then want to go across the end grain, same. End grain is a little bit trickier to do, so just take your time nice and gently first. Push across, and once more. Okay, and then finally on our other side. One stroke and then just one more stroke. Okay, so that's that done. Again, pop a thin pencil line in, just so that line shows up a bit easier, ready for cutting. Okay, so that's now our tenon marked out. What you can then do is actually take it over to your mortise, line up the face side, so the faces are both on the same side, line up your tenon, making sure that them lines are perfectly lined up with our mortise. Okay, so that's both the mortise and tenon all finished and marked out.